Hello, and this is going to be trial 2. I was not happy with the video I made last night. This is our 10b, Kingdoms, the Big Four. These are going to be the eukaryotic kingdoms. We did the prokaryotic ones in 10a, so these are going to be the other four. And those other four are the remaining four kingdoms of life. And these are organisms with, again, eukaryotic, which is the true nucleus. And they are Animalia, which is us. They are fungi, which are the decomposers. They are plantae, which are the true autotrophs. And they are protista, which are the simplest of all four of these, and they tend to be both plant and animal-like, probably the ones that are overlooked. And they're not so much this algae that you see here, they're the stuff that's growing in the water, and I'll show you a really quick video of those. So plants, autotrophs, fungus, decomposers, and animals, us guys. Evolution of eukaryotic cells, we talked about those things way back in Unit 3. Process is called endosymbiosis, where we actually had a large prokaryotic cell without organelles actually invited through endocytosis, through a endocytosis exercise where we actually pulled in aerobic bacteria, which actually, if we feed them, our cells feed them, they give us ATP. And then they actually became mitochondria, and those mitochondria came over to make animal cells, the roundish sort of shapes. And then we also had other types of cells that had the mitochondria that invited other prokaryotic, autotrophic type material, which are going to end up being chloroplasts in the plant cells, a more angular shape. So you can take a look at the A, B, C, and D too if you wish. First one we're going to talk about is Protista. Protista is the most varied of all the kingdoms. They are eukaryotic. They are mostly unicellular, although a few of them will be multicellular. They move with lots of different things. They have cilia, they have flagella, and they have amoeboid type false feet, which we'll talk about. They do not have a cell wall, and they come in both types of energy. They can eat other things, and they can also, some of them can produce, like this euglena, actually do have chloroplasts, and they can produce their own food. And most have asexual reproduction, where they get to a certain size and they break in half, or they split in half, probably through that cleavage furrow type attitude, where they actually break in half and all the organelles move through the G1, G2 before they reproduce again. Okay, so protists can be classified based on their method of movement. They can have false feet, pseudopods, where they go through amoeboid action. They can have flagella, which I don't remember if I have. I think maybe on the next slide I actually have a video of those. And we also have cilia, which are lots of little feet that move around. Okay. They're adaptive in terms of mobility. Pseudopods, again, false feet. This is where we actually get the cytoplasm to move in a direction, and the cell membrane moves along with it. And then we also have flagella, which is the tail, or cilia, which are hairs. So let's take a peek at this.
This single-celled amoeba crawls around by using actin polymerization to push out pseudopods, or false feet, to explore new territory. At the same time, organelles move in complex patterns within the cell.
Okay, I think there was one on the last one. I didn't do this introduction to protists, so I tried to put this into a little screen as well, but this URL just did not want to do as advertised. So we'll look at it here. And I'd go to full screen too, but I have the video cut off right here. This is from Frank Gregario, who's a teacher, I think, at OP High School, a friend of mine. I think he's at OP. He came from a production company before he went into teaching, so he's got a lot more technology in terms of software and hardware. And he does have a friend that actually puts together music background which you can hear. It's quite good. He doesn't speak in any of these, so I'm going to talk over it. These are not protists. They're not protista. These are waterborne creatures. So you can't even see them in here. Probably can't see them in those drops as well. But after we get this splashing, some of these drops that are on the plant, zoom in, and there they are. Organic material and Proteus moving through it, eating some of the material. You can see the cilia is actually making vibrations or motions in the water. These are paramecium with itty bitty teeny tiny cilia all over them. You can see them moving the water around their skin. More cilia. More cilia. It was a flagella looking thing, but you can still see the cilia moving. Not sure what this one is, how it's moving. There's asexual reproduction. There's Euglena making its own food. Volvox making its own food. That's sort of an amoeboid action, although I don't see it moving the material. And then we have Euglena and Paramecium in that picture. So let's go back into here. And we are on this one. So second kingdom is fungi. These guys are eukaryotic, most variable in terms of the multicellular type of kingdoms, but they do have some unicellular, like yeast, stuff we actually use to make bread, all nice and fluffy, and beer, alcoholic. All fungi do have a cell wall made out of chitin, same material that's in your fingernails. Sexual reproduction is starting to show up. They do make spores, which are naked seeds, not quite naked seeds, but they basically are produced by male and female gametes, and they're usually formed underneath, in this case, this shell of this mushroom. Asexual reproduction also, this is budding in the yeast, and you can see they're growing off little babies, and they'll eventually get big enough, and then they'll break off and start making all new kinds of yeast. Nutrition, they're all heterotrophic. They all feed off of other organic matter. Some absorb the nutrients from dead organic matter, like mushrooms. Adapted for decomposition. They're not actually eating grass here. This is probably a root of a tree or some dead piece of wood that they're feeding off of. They send roots down. They're called hypha. And there's just about as much biomass in the ground as there is on the top. So if you see fungus growing on bread, the black stuff you see on it, or cheese, the green stuff you see on it, there's just as much of the biomass in the cheese that you don't see as what you see in the fruiting bodies that are on the outside. Some feed on living tissue also, like athlete's foot, and these are what we call parasites. They actually do eat the living material, the dead end, the living material that's on, and cause all kinds of pain. Really gross picture. And they continue to cycle nutrients from one section of the ecosystem to another. They're taking the dead organic material, the skin, and some living material, and they're actually releasing it to the environment for other critters. Characteristics, they're stationary, which means they don't move, non-modal. They're classified based on their differences in structure. We have what are called club fungi, which are the mushrooms. Normal, they've got that cap, that shell on the outside. They've got gills where the spores actually form. They have a stem, and they have the section, it's called the universal veil, which is on the ground, and then they also have hyphae that is growing, and you've seen these probably on dead logs and other organic material, primarily plant material. Then we also have mold, good stuff that's on bread and cheese, telling you that it's probably too old. Probably absolutely milk too, to sour the milk. And then we have yeast, which are not so good. And this is a yeast infection on this kid's face, but they can happen anywhere. Moving into the third one, plants or plantae. These are all multicellular. They're all autotrophs, photosynthesis, greens, and you can see some are much more green than others, maybe more photosynthetic. They do have a cell wall. This one's made out of cellulose, a complex carbohydrate, stuff you guys actually use for like pasta parties if you're into team sports. They all produce by sexual reproduction, male and female gametes. They are not motile, so there's no movement. And they're characterized by either being vascular or non-vascular, monocot and dicot. Vascular basically means that they've got roots and stems. Vascular plants, vascular plants are like fern, conifers or pine trees or flowering plants. If you take a look, we actually have a callidogram here where we actually have a speciation event. So we started with ancestral green algae, and then something came through and made the moss, the liverworts, and the hornworts. These are the non-vascular. They basically don't have real stems, true stems, and they also don't have a root system, although they do have something to hold fast, to hold them in place. And then we had the first vascular plants, which aren't around anymore, and they gave rise probably to ferns, which are more primitive than conifers. And there's the first seed plants. These are naked seeds. If you've ever seen the seeds in a pine cone, they don't have a wrapping around them. The way you can tell naked seeds is that they actually have like fruit on the outside of them, and that's how you can tell the seed from the plant. Fruits are different than vegetable matter, so if you eat the leaf, the stem, the root, that's called the vegetable, and if you actually eat the part of the flower that becomes the fruit, that's a fruit. Monocotyledon inside the cell, if there's one leaf, it's called a one cotyledon, one cotyledon or monocot. You can see this is a corn seed. The embryo seed is on the inside. The first leaf is going to come out of there. The endosperm, which is the food for this plant to start growing, goes in, and then the food actually makes powers all the part of the plant you see here until the green pops up, and then the chlorophyll takes over. But you can see the one leaf that pops up, that's a monocotyledon. Dicotyledons, the embryo is still inside. We still have an endosperm to feed the plant, but we have two leaves. These are true leaves, or two cotyledons. And then when they pop up, and this is pretty much everything else that you can think of. This would be like a corn, it's corn, this would be like a sunflower, or a pepper, or a tomato, or an oak tree, or any kind of tree you can pretty much imagine. If they lack roots or stems, they're called non-vascular, and by the type of seeds they produce. So they can actually be naked seed, or they can be fruited seed. And the last one are Animalia. Animals are multicellular, all of them. They are heterotrophs, all of them. They have no cell walls, difference between animal and plant cell. And they're definitely capable of moving, whether they're running away from a critter or they're running toward a critter, whether you're predator or prey. And they all reproduce sexually reproductive. Animals are classified or characterized primarily due to their groups based on the presence or absence of a nerve cord and also some other developments. But we basically have invertebrates going all the way over to here, and then we have the one section here that does have a vertebrate, and they're only showing you an amphibian thing that needs water. Could be a fish, could also be a reptile, could be a mammal, could be a bird. But these are speciation events, so you can see like the jellyfish probably are not too far away from the ancestral tree. And then we move over and we have worms, Pladiomentes. And then we have another speciation event to give us nematodes, or other species events to give us mollusca, annelid, the true worm, arthropod or arthropoda, insecta would be in there somewhere also, and then Echinodermata, starfish, and then Chordata, having a true backbone and a true nerve cord. And I see our little alien is up there, and that means that we are done with this slide. Just want to pop, yep, we are done, because that's 10C. Thank you for stopping by. Hope this one sounds much better.